Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Soldier's Heart. Master Sergeant Michael Edwards crouched behind a crumbling wall in Kandahar, his rifle trained on a suspected Taliban compound 300 meters out. The Afghan sun beat down mercilessly, but Mike's focus never wavered. 22 years of military service had honed him into a weapon of precision and discipline. At 45, Mike commanded respect from every soldier under him. His steel-gray eyes had seen 3 tours in Iraq and 4 in Afghanistan. His weathered hands bore scars from IEDs and firefights, but his mind remained sharp as the K-bar knife strapped to his thigh. "Edwards, you've got mail," whispered Corporal Friedman, sliding up beside him with a satellite phone. Mike didn't move his scope. "Not now, Carl. We're 30 seconds from go time. It's from stateside, Sarge. The Red Cross." Those words made Mike's blood freeze. Red Cross calls Mint family emergencies. His daughter Hope was 17, living with his ex-wife Megan in Portland. They divorced 5 years ago when Megan couldn't handle the deployments anymore. Mike had fought for custody but lost. A decorated war hero was apparently less suitable than a mother who provided stability. "Take over the scope," Mike ordered, accepting the phone. The mission had been Mike's baby for weeks. Intelligence suggested a high-value target was meeting here tonight. But as he pressed the phone to his ear, everything else faded away. "Michael Edwards?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Speaking. This is Nancy Williams from Portland General Hospital. Your daughter, Hope Edwards, was admitted 3 hours ago with severe injuries. Your ex-wife listed you as emergency contact." Mike's trained composure cracked. "What kind of injuries?" "Severe cranial trauma, internal bleeding, multiple facial fractures. She's stable but critical. You need to know, this wasn't an accident." Before Mike could respond, another voice broke through. Megan, sobbing hysterically. "Mike? Oh God, Mike, you have to come home. He almost killed her. Terrence almost killed our baby. Terrence McFarland." Mike's jaw clenched. Megan's boyfriend for the past year, a 2-time felon with a drinking problem. Mike had run his background when they started dating. Assault charges, domestic violence, all dropped when victims refused to testify. "What happened?" Mike's voice was deadly calm. She refused to." Megan's words dissolved into sobs. "He wanted her to do things. When she said no, he beat her unconscious." "Mike, there's so much blood." The phone crackled, and suddenly his squad leader's voice cut through. "Edwards, whatever you're dealing with can wait. We've got movement in the compound." But Mike was already standing, his rifle lowered. "George, I need immediate extraction." "Negative. This operation. My daughter's dying." Mike's voice carried 22 years of unwavering service. And the man who did it is walking free. Lieutenant Colonel George Denton had served with Mike in Iraq. He'd seen him charge in a gunfire to save wounded soldiers, had watched him carry 3 men to safety during an ambush in Fallujah. George knew that tone. How bad? Skull fracture, internal bleeding. Some animal tried to rape her and beat her half to death when she fought back. The radio fell silent for long moments. Then, "Black Ops chopper will be at your location in 20. Make it rain, Mike." As Mike gathered his gear, Corporal Friedman grabbed his arm. "Sarge, you sure about this? You're throwing away your pension, maybe facing court-martial." Mike's gray eyes were ice cold. "Carl, I've spent 22 years fighting monsters overseas. Time I dealt with the one in my own backyard." Chapter 2. The Beast Revealed. The helicopter ride to Bagram Air Base passed in a blur. Mike's mind raced through tactical scenarios, but one image kept surfacing. Hope at 12, teaching him to braid her hair before a father-daughter dance. She'd grown up beautiful and strong, despite the divorce. Despite his absence, the military transport to Portland gave him 8 hours to plan. Mike called his old friend Abel Thompson, now Portland PD detective, from the plane. "Mike? Jesus, I heard about Hope." "I'm sorry, brother. Tell me about Terrence McFarland." Abel's voice hardened. "Piece of work. Real name's Terrence McFarland Sullivan. Took his stepfather's name to dodge warrants. We've been watching him for months. Word is he's connected to a dog fighting ring. Runs numbers for some nasty people. Charges. Nothing that stuck. 3 domestic violence calls, 2 sexual assault allegations, 1 attempted murder. Victims all clammed up or disappeared. Mike absorbed this. He's still at large. Walking free. Megan won't press charges, says she's scared. Hospital called it in, but without witnesses or her testimony. I need everything you have on him. Addresses, associates, weaknesses. Mike, whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking my 17-year-old daughter has a fractured skull because some animal thinks he can do whatever he wants to women. Mike's voice was surgical steel. I'm thinking someone needs to teach him otherwise. Abel was quiet for a moment. I'll have a file waiting. Portland General's ICU was sterile and bright, but Mike barely noticed. Hope lay unconscious, her beautiful face swollen beyond recognition. Purple bruises covered her cheekbones, her lip was split, and her left eye was sealed shut. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped steadily. Megan sat beside the bed, looking 10 years older than her 41 years. When she saw Mike, she collapsed into his arms. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I should have listened when you said he was dangerous. I should have protected her. Mike held her, but his eyes never left Hope. Tell me exactly what happened. Megan's voice was hollow. I was at work. Hope came home early from school. Some club meeting was canceled. She texted me that Terrence was there, acting weird. He'd been drinking. Then what? He cornered her in the kitchen, started saying how pretty she was, how she was becoming a real woman. When she tried to leave, he grabbed her. Mike's hands slowly clenched into fists. Continue. She fought him off and ran to her room, locked the door. But he kicked it in. She called 911, but he ripped the phone away. Megan's voice broke. The neighbors heard screaming. When they called police, it was already over. Where was he when police arrived? Gone. Just vanished. Mike studied Hope's chart. Concussion, orbital fracture, internal bleeding from kidney damage, defensive wounds on her hands and arms. She'd fought hard. Dr. Phillips, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, approached them. Mr. Edwards? I'm Hope's attending physician. How is she? Stable but serious. The brain swelling has decreased, which is encouraging. She regained consciousness briefly an hour ago. Asked for her father. Mike's throat tightened. Will she recover fully? Physically, yes. The psychological trauma. Dr. Phillips hesitated. That'll take time. She's a strong girl, Mr. Edwards. But what she endured would break most adults. That night, Mike sat beside Hope's bed as she slept fitfully. Every beep of the monitors reminded him of his failure. He'd been hunting terrorists halfway around the world while a predator stalked his daughter in her own home. Hope's eyes fluttered open around midnight. When she saw him, tears began flowing. Daddy. Her voice was barely a whisper through her damaged throat. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. He said you'd never know. That's soldiers like you don't care about their families. Mike gently took her unbandaged hand. Hope, listen to me. What happened to you will never happen again. I promise you that. But he's still out there, Daddy. What if he comes back? Mike's gray eyes were gentle, but absolutely certain. He won't be a problem much longer, baby girl. Daddy's going to make sure of that. Chapter 3. Gathering Intelligence. The next morning, Mike met Abel Thompson at a diner across from police headquarters. Abel slid a thick folder across the table with their coffee. Everything's in there, Abel said quietly. But Mike, officially, I never gave you this. The file painted a picture of systematic predation. Terrence McFarland Sullivan, 34, had been escalating for years. 3 girlfriends hospitalized, 2 teenage sisters who'd accused him of assault before their family suddenly moved out of state. He owned a body shop that was clearly a front. Overhead too high, customer base too small. He's connected, Mike observed, studying surveillance photos. The Navarro family. Josh Navarro runs half the underground action in Portland. Terrence does enforcement, breaks legs, intimidates witnesses. Mike found what he was looking for on page 12. Terrence lived in a converted warehouse in an industrial district. Isolated, minimal police presence, perfect for what Mike had in mind. There's something else, Abel continued. Megan's not the first mother whose kid he's targeted. 2 years ago, a woman named Brandy Wade called in a domestic. Her 15-year-old daughter claimed Terrence assaulted her. What happened? Brandy dropped charges after her car was firebombed. Family moved to Seattle the next week. Mike memorized the warehouse layout from city planning documents. 3 stories, reinforced concrete, minimal windows. Terrence had turned the first floor into a garage, lived on the second, used the third for storage, likely Navarro's illegal operations. That afternoon, Mike conducted reconnaissance. The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by abandoned buildings. Perfect for containment. He noted security cameras, but they were old, poorly positioned. Terrence was either arrogant or stupid. From a building across the street, Mike watched through binoculars as Terrence returned home. He was bigger than Mike expected, 6'3", maybe 240, built like a linebacker gone soft. Prison tattoos covered his arms, and he moved with the swagger of someone who'd never faced real consequences. Mike's phone buzzed. Text from Hope. Daddy, when are you coming back? He typed carefully with one thumb. Soon, sweetheart. Rest and get strong. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than you'll ever know. That evening, Mike visited an old Army buddy, Leonard Lancaster, who ran a military surplus store outside Portland. Lynn took one look at Mike's face and locked the front door. How bad do you need it? Lynn asked, leading Mike to the back room. Bad enough. Lynn opened a concealed panel, revealing items not typically available to civilians. Non-lethal or permanent solutions? Mike considered this carefully. Killing Terrence would be easy, but it would destroy his own life and leave Hope without a father. There were better ways to ensure justice. I need him broken, not dead. At least, not directly. Lynn nodded and began assembling items. Tactical vest, zip ties, a taser, night vision goggles, and something special, a small device that looked like a garage door opener. GPS tracker with audio pickup, Lynn explained. Stick it somewhere he won't find it, and you'll know his every move. Mike spent the rest of the night planning. Terrence's routine was predictable. Work until 6, bar until 10, home to his warehouse. Weekends were wild cards, but weekdays followed a pattern. The plan forming in Mike's mind was complex, requiring precise timing and multiple moving parts. It would take days to execute properly, but when it was finished, Terrence McFarland Sullivan would face something he'd never encountered before: accountability. As Mike reviewed city maps and police patrol schedules, his phone rang. Hospital number. Mr. Edwards? This is Dr. Phillips. Hope is asking for you. She's having nightmares and won't settle down. Mike was out the door in seconds. As he drove through Portland's empty streets, he thought about justice versus revenge. The law had failed Hope. The system had failed every girl Terrence had hurt. But Mike Edwards had never failed a mission in 22 years of service. He wasn't about to start now. Chapter 4, The Father's Promise. Hope was sitting up when Mike arrived, her good eye wide with terror for whatever nightmare had gripped her. When she saw him, relief flooded her battered features. He was here, she whispered. In my dream. He said he was coming back for me. Mike sat beside her bed, his presence immediately calming her racing heart. Hope, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I've been thinking about what happened, and I have a plan. What kind of plan? The kind that ensures Terrence can never hurt you or anyone else again. Mike's voice was steady, reassuring. But I need to know everything. Every detail you can remember, no matter how difficult. Hope was quiet for a long moment, then began speaking in a small, determined voice. She told him about Terrence's escalating behavior over the past month. Inappropriate comments, accidental touches, walking into her room without knocking. Mom didn't believe me at first, Hope said. She said I was being dramatic because I didn't like him. What changed her mind? Last week, she came home early and caught him going through my laundry. He claimed he was just helping with housework, but Mom saw how he was handling my clothes. Mike felt his jaw clench, but kept his expression neutral. Tell me about yesterday. Hope's account was devastating. Terrence had cornered her in the kitchen, drunk and aggressive. When she tried to call for help, he'd grabbed her phone and thrown it against the wall. The assault that followed was calculated, designed to break her spirit as much as her body. He kept saying I was just like my mother, That I needed to learn my place, Hope whispered. When I fought back, he got angrier. Said soldiers' daughters think they're tough, but break just like everyone else. Mike's hand found hers gently. Hope, you survived. You fought back when a grown man attacked you, and you survived. That makes you stronger than he'll ever be. But Daddy, what if he comes back? What if he hurts Mom? He won't. Mike's voice carried absolute certainty. I'm going to make sure of that. The next morning, Mike began phase 1 of his operation. He rented a nondescript sedan and followed Terrence to his body shop. The business was exactly what Abel had described, a front for laundering money and intimidating witnesses. Mike watched as Terrence worked, noting his habits, his interactions with customers. Around noon, Josh Navarro arrived in a black Mercedes. Mike used a telephoto lens to photograph their meeting, recording license plates and faces. Through the shop's windows, he could see Terrence showing Navarro stacks of cash. Money from what? Protection rackets? Drug sales? It didn't matter. What mattered was establishing the connection for later use. That afternoon, Mike visited Megan at her real estate office. She looked exhausted, jumping at every unexpected sound. How is she? Megan asked immediately. Stronger than we thought. But Megan, we need to talk about Terrence. Megan's face crumpled. I know what you're thinking, that this is my fault for bringing him into our lives. This isn't about blame. It's about making sure Hope is safe. The police say they can't do anything without more evidence. Terrence has an alibi, claims he was at the bar all afternoon. The bartender backs him up. Mike wasn't surprised. Fear or money, maybe both, had bought Terrence temporary protection. But Mike had learned long ago that protection was only as strong as the people providing it. Megan, I need you to do something for me. Tomorrow, take Hope to your sister's house in Seattle. Stay there for 2 weeks. Why? What are you planning? Mike looked at his ex-wife, the woman who'd once loved him enough to marry him, who'd given him the most precious thing in his life. I'm planning to be the father Hope needs me to be. That evening, Mike installed Leonard's GPS tracker on Terrence's truck while he was at Mickey's bar. The device was military-grade, virtually undetectable, and would record audio within a 15-foot radius. Back at his hotel, Mike monitored Terrence's location and conversations through a laptop interface. The man was a creature of habit. Same bar, same booth, same complaints about ungrateful women and disrespectful kids. Around midnight, Terrence left the bar and drove to his warehouse. Mike followed at a distance, using night vision equipment to observe the building's security measures. 3 cameras, motion sensors on the ground floor, but the upper levels were vulnerable. Mike's phone chimed with a text from Hope. Daddy, Mom says we're going to Aunt Casey's tomorrow. Are you coming too? Mike typed back. Not yet, sweetheart. I have some business to finish first. But I'll see you soon. I love you, Daddy. Thank you for believing me. Mike stared at that message for a long time. In 22 years of military service, he'd received commendations, medals, and recognition from generals. But nothing had ever meant more than those simple words from his daughter. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Chapter 5. Setting the Trap. Phase 2 commenced at dawn. Mike positioned himself with a view of Terrence's warehouse, documenting every detail of his routine. The man was punctual, leaving for work at exactly 7:30 a.m., returning for lunch at noon, then staying at the shop until 6 p.m. More importantly, Mike observed Terrence's visitors. Josh Navarro arrived twice during the week, each time carrying a briefcase and leaving with packages from the warehouse's 3rd floor. Other men came and went, enforcers, dealers, the entire structure of a criminal enterprise operating under police radar. Mike's military training had taught him that successful operations required intelligence, timing, and patience. He spent 3 days building a complete picture of Terrence's world, identifying weaknesses and pressure points. The breakthrough came Thursday evening. Through the GPS audio feed, Mike heard Terrence on a phone call that would change everything. Yeah, boss, I got a message, Terrence was saying. The Edwards girl? She's not talking to cops, but her old man's back in town. Army guy. So, Josh Navarro's voice was clear through the feed. So maybe we should send a message. Make sure Daddy Soldier knows what happens to families that cause problems. Mike's blood went cold as Terrence continued. I still got keys to the ex-wife's place. Could pay another visit, finish what I started with the daughter. Do what you gotta do, Navarro replied. But make it clean. We don't need federal heat. Mike immediately called Abel Thompson. I need you to pick up Josh Navarro for questioning. Tonight. On what grounds? I'll provide grounds. Just keep him busy for 48 hours. Mike, what are you planning? Justice, Abel. The kind of courts can't provide. That night, Mike executed Phase 3. Using skills learned in Afghanistan, he infiltrated the warehouse while Terrence was at Mickey's bar. The third-floor storage area contained exactly what Mike expected: stolen merchandise, illegal weapons, and detailed records of Josh Navarro's operations. Mike photographed everything, uploading files to a secure server. But more importantly, he found what would give him leverage: security footage from cameras throughout the warehouse, including one positioned to record Terrence's assault on Hope. The monster had filmed his crime. Mike copied the footage onto multiple drives, then placed cameras of his own throughout the building. When his trap was sprung, he wanted everything documented. By 2 a.m., Mike had transformed the warehouse into a sophisticated surveillance post. Hidden cameras, audio pickups, and motion sensors would track Terrence's every movement. More importantly, Mike had rigged the building's electrical system with military-grade equipment that would give him complete control over lights, locks, and even the heating system. Friday morning brought unexpected complications. Megan called, frantic. Mike, Hope's having panic attacks. She keeps saying Terrence is going to find us. You're safe in Seattle. I made sure of that. But for how long? We can't hide forever. Mike understood her fear, but his plan required precision timing. 2 more days, Megan. I promise this ends in 2 more days. Why aren't you telling me? I'm telling you that Hope will never have to fear Terrence McFarland again. That's all you need to know. That afternoon, Abel called with good news. Navarro's in holding. Anonymous tip about stolen vehicles led to a search warrant. We found enough evidence to keep him busy for weeks. Perfect. That leaves Terrence isolated and vulnerable. Mike, I ran the warehouse through our database. That building's been flagged by federal agencies. Whatever you're planning, it's going to draw attention. Good, Mike said quietly. I want them to see what happens to animals who hurt children. Friday evening, Mike watched Terrence return from work to find 2 FBI agents waiting at his body shop. They questioned him for an hour about Josh Navarro's operations, leaving him paranoid and angry. Through the audio feed, Mike heard Terrence making desperate phone calls. His protection was gone, his boss was arrested, and he was beginning to understand that his world was collapsing. Time to close the net, Mike murmured, checking his equipment one final time. Saturday would be Judgment Day. Chapter 6. The Hunt Begins. Saturday dawned gray and cold, perfect weather for what Mike had planned. Terrence slept late, his phone ringing constantly with calls from associates who'd heard about Navarro's arrest. Through the warehouse's hidden cameras, Mike watched him pace like a caged animal. At noon, Terrence made the call Mike had been waiting for. Mickey? It's Terry. I need you to send someone to Seattle. I got a problem needs handling. Mike immediately contacted Abel. He's making a move on my family. Time to execute. What do you need? Complete radio silence on the warehouse district. Whatever happens tonight, your units stay clear until I give the all clear. Mike, Abel, this ends tonight. One way or another. At 3 p.m., Mike watched 2 of Terrence's associates drive towards Seattle in a black SUV. He'd anticipated this move, and Leonard Lancaster was already in position to intercept them. The former Army Ranger would ensure they never reached Megan and Hope. By 6 p.m., Terrence was drinking heavily, his paranoia increasing with each failed phone call. Mike began Phase 4, using the warehouse's rigged electrical system to play psychological warfare. First, the lights began flickering randomly. Then the heating system started cycling on and off, creating unsettling sounds throughout the building. Mike used the hidden speakers to play barely audible sounds, footsteps, whispers, the distant sound of Hope screaming. Through the cameras, Mike watched Terrence's growing panic. The man checked and rechecked locks, drew the curtains, and armed himself with a baseball bat from his truck. At 9 p.m., Mike cut the main power, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Through night vision equipment, he watched Terrence stumble around with a flashlight, calling out challenges to shadows. "Who's there? I know someone's messing with me." Mike used the audio system to project his voice throughout the building. "Hello, Terrence." Terrence spun around, bat raised. "Who is that? Show yourself. You wanted to send men after my daughter. That was a mistake." Recognition dawned on Terrence's face. "Edwards? You're the soldier. Hope's daddy." "That's right. And you hurt my little girl." Mike had positioned himself on the building's roof, accessing the interior through a skylight he'd prepared earlier. He rappelled down on tactical ropes, landing silently in the third-floor shadows. "You can't prove nothing," Terrence called out, his voice cracking. "That little bitch is lying. I don't need to prove anything, Terrence. I have something better." Mike activated a laptop connected to the building's sound system. Hope's screams filled the warehouse, audio from Terrence's own security cameras during the assault. "No, please." Hope's voice echoed off the walls. "Please don't hurt me." Terrence's face went white. He'd forgotten about his own recordings. "Turn it off," he screamed. "Turn it off." But Mike let it play, every moment of Terrence's crime, recorded in perfect digital clarity. The sounds of a 17-year-old girl fighting for her life against a predator twice her size. When the audio ended, Mike's voice returned, calm and controlled. "She fought you, Terrence. A child fought you and survived. Now let's see how you do against some of your own size." Mike dropped through the skylight, landing 20 feet from Terrence with military precision. In his tactical gear, armed with military training and righteous fury, he looked like death incarnate. Terrence swung the bat wildly. Mike caught it mid-swing, twisted it from his hands, and broke it over his knee. "Please," Terrence whimpered. "I can pay you. Whatever you want." "What I want," Mike said quietly, "is for you to understand what my daughter felt when you cornered her in her own home." Chapter 7. Reckoning. Mike moved with calculated precision, herding Terrence toward the warehouse's center where he prepared his final stage. The space was lit by military-grade floodlights, powered by portable generators, creating a stark arena of judgment. "Sit down," Mike commanded, indicating a metal chair bolted to the floor. "Look, man, we can work this out," Terrence pleaded, backing away. "I got money. Connections. We can make a deal." "The same deal you offer my daughter?" Mike's taser dropped Terrence instantly. When the convulsions stopped, Mike zip-tied him to the chair, then activated cameras positioned to record everything. "Let me tell you what's going to happen," Mike said, circling his prisoner like a predator. "You're going to confess to every crime you've committed, every girl you've hurt, every family you've terrorized. All of it. I ain't saying nothing without a lawyer." Mike smiled coldly and activated a large monitor. Security footage began playing, Terrence assaulting Hope, beating her unconscious, and worse. The timestamp showed the date and time. The location was clearly identifiable. This video is already uploaded to multiple news stations, police departments, and FBI field offices. Mike lied smoothly. The only question is whether you want to control the narrative or let the evidence speak for itself. Terrence's face crumpled as he watched his crimes played back in high definition. "You can't do this. I got rights. You forfeited your rights when you put your hands on my daughter." Mike revealed a second monitor showing live feeds from security cameras throughout Portland. "I've been watching you for weeks, Terrence. I know about the dog-fighting ring, the protection racket, the other girls you've hurt. That's all Navarro's operation. You just rape and terrorize children for money." Mike's voice was ice, like Brandy Wade's daughter. "Remember her? 15 years old when you attacked her." Terrence's eyes widened. "How do you? I know everything. The question is whether you want to face justice or just disappear." For the next hour, Mike systematically broke down Terrence's psychological defenses. He played audio recordings of the man's own words, showed photos of his victims, detailed evidence of crimes spanning 5 years. "Here's what happens next," Mike finally said. "You're going to call Detective Thompson and confess to everything. Every assault, every threatened witness, every crime you've committed in Josh Navarro's organization. They'll kill me in prison. Maybe. Or maybe you'll get protective custody and spend the rest of your life in a cell, thinking about the children you hurt. Mike leaned close. Either way, you'll never touch another little girl. Terrence was sobbing now, the tough guy facade completely shattered. Please, I'll leave town. I'll disappear. Just let me go. Like you let Hope go when she begged you to stop? Mike played the audio again, Hope's terrified voice filling the warehouse. This time, Terrence broke completely. Okay, I'll confess. Just make it stop. Mike handed him a phone with Abel Thompson's number already dialed. Start talking. For 30 minutes, Terrence confessed to crimes that would ensure he'd never see freedom again. Sexual assault, witness intimidation, extortion, conspiracy. Abel recorded every word while Mike documented the confession on multiple cameras. When it was finished, Mike cut Terrence's restraints. Portland PD will be here in 10 minutes. You can run, or you can wait for them. Either way, your life as a predator is over. Terrence chose to run, exactly as Mike had predicted. Chapter 8, The Final Gambit. Terrence stumbled from the warehouse into the cold Portland night, his confession already in police hands but his panic overriding logic. Mike tracked him through the GPS device still hidden on his truck, watching as the desperate man made increasingly erratic decisions. First, Terrence drove to Josh Navarro's house, only to find it surrounded by federal agents. Then he tried 3 different associates, all under surveillance or already arrested as Navarro's organization collapsed. Through intercepted phone calls, Mike heard Terrence's growing desperation. His criminal network was gone, his protection evaporated, and law enforcement was closing in. But Mike wasn't finished yet. At 2 a.m., Terrence made a fatal mistake. Paranoid and sleep-deprived, he decided to flee Portland but needed money first. He broke into his body shop to retrieve cash hidden in a floor safe. Mike was waiting, going somewhere. Mike emerged from the shadows as Terrence stuffed bills into a duffel bag. Terrence spun around, pointing a pistol with shaking hands. Stay back. I'll kill you. With what? The gun you reported stolen 3 months ago. Mike stepped closer, unafraid. The one with no firing pin. Terrence pulled the trigger repeatedly. Click, click, click. I've been watching you for weeks, Mike explained calmly. I know every weapon you own, every hiding place, every escape route. Did you really think I'd let you keep a functional weapon? Terrence threw the useless gun and lunged with a knife from his workbench. Mike sidestepped easily, using Terrence's momentum to drive him into a concrete wall. The man collapsed, blood streaming from his nose. Here's what I don't understand, Mike said, dragging Terrence to his feet. You attacked a 17-year-old girl. You filmed it. You kept the evidence. What kind of sick mind does that? Please. But I'm grateful you're stupid, Mike continued, because now everyone will see exactly what you are. Mike activated a tablet showing news broadcasts from 3 Portland stations. All were running the same story. Warehouse confession. Local man admits to multiple assaults. Terrence's face filled every screen as his recorded confession played for the entire city. No, Terrence whispered. You said that was just for cops. I lied. Mike's smile was predatory. By morning, everyone in Portland will know what you did to my daughter. Your picture will be on every news site, every social media platform. Terrence's legs gave out. The reality of his situation was finally penetrating his alcohol-fogged brain. Even if he escaped arrest, he'd never be able to hide. His face, his crimes, his confession, all of it was now public record. Why, he gasped. You already won. Why destroy me completely? Mike knelt beside him, his voice gentle but implacable. Because deterrence only works if other predators understand the consequences. Because Hope needs to see that monsters can be defeated. Because the system failed every girl you hurt, but I won't. Police sirens were approaching. Mike had called Abel 20 minutes ago, timing Terrence's capture perfectly. One last thing, Mike said, pulling out his phone. Hope wants to tell you something. Hope's voice filled the shop through the phone's speaker. Strong, clear, and absolutely fearless. Terrence McFarland, my name is Hope Edwards. You hurt me, but you didn't break me. My daddy taught me that courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing what's right even when you are afraid. I'm not afraid of you anymore. And thanks to my father, no other girl will be either. Terrence was weeping as police lights flooded the shop. Mike melted into the shadows, his mission complete. Chapter 9. Restoration. 6 months later, Mike sat in a courtroom as Judge Richards sentenced Terrence McFarland Sullivan to 25 years in prison without parole. The confession, the evidence, and testimony from 7 other victims had sealed his fate. Hope sat beside him, her physical injuries long healed. The psychological scars would take longer, but she was fighting back with therapy, martial arts training, and the unshakable knowledge that her father would always protect her. "How do you feel?" Mike asked as they left the courthouse. "Like justice actually exists," Hope replied, squeezing his hand. "Like bad people can't hurt good people forever." Megan waited outside with news that made Mike's sacrifice worthwhile. "The Army called," she said. "Your discharge has been changed to honorable retirement. 22 years of exemplary service, plus the circumstances." She smiled. "You keep your pension, your benefits, everything." Abel Thompson approached them with Detective Brandy Wade, the woman whose daughter had been Terrence's earlier victim. She'd flown in from Seattle to testify. "Mr. Edwards," Brandy said, tears in her eyes, "I wanted to thank you. For the first time in 2 years, my daughter isn't afraid anymore. She knows that someone stood up, that someone made him pay. That's what fathers do," Mike replied simply. The media attention had been intense, but positive. Mike's background, his daughter's courage, and the systematic way he dismantled a criminal organization had captured public imagination. Portland's mayor had quietly ensured that no charges were filed against Mike for his vigilante justice. Josh Navarro received 15 years for racketeering, his organization permanently destroyed. Several other predators connected to the case were also prosecuted, their crimes exposed by evidence Mike had gathered. But the best outcome was simpler. Hope Edwards was healing. "Daddy," she said as they walked to their car, "I've been thinking about my future, about what I want to do with my life. Oh, I want to study criminal justice, maybe become a prosecutor or a victim's advocate. I want to help other girls who go through what I went through." Mike stopped walking and turned to face his daughter. In her eyes, he saw strength, determination, and an unbreakable spirit that no criminal could touch. "You know what that means?" he asked. "What?" "It means he didn't win. Terrence tried to break you, to make you afraid, to steal your future. Instead, you're going to spend your life making sure other predators face justice." Mike's voice was thick with pride. He tried to create a victim, but he created a warrior instead. Hope hugged him tightly. "I had a good teacher." As they drove home through Portland streets, Mike reflected on the choices he'd made. He'd thrown away a military career to save his daughter. He'd risked everything to ensure justice when the system failed. But watching Hope laugh with her mother, seeing her plan a future without fear, Mike knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes being a father meant more than just providing and protecting. Sometimes it meant showing your children that good people fight back, that justice exists, and that love is stronger than fear. Michael Edwards had served his country for 22 years. But his most important mission had been saving his daughter's future, and that mission was accomplished. Epilogue. 8 years later. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Multnomah County District Attorney's office as Hope Edwards Lancaster stood before a jury, her voice steady and commanding as she delivered her closing argument. "Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant wants you to believe that his victims are lying. That's 7 different women, spanning 4 years. All conspired to destroy an innocent man's reputation." Hope's gray eyes, so much like her father's, swept across the jury box. But evidence doesn't lie. DNA doesn't lie. And the systematic pattern of predatory behavior we've documented doesn't lie. At 25, Hope had become one of Portland's most effective prosecutors, specializing in sexual assault cases that other attorneys often avoided. Her conviction rate was exceptional, but more importantly, she'd revolutionized how the DA's office handled victim testimony, creating protocols that help survivors find their voice in court. The defense will tell you that these women waited too long to come forward, that their memories can't be trusted, Hope continued. But I stand here as living proof that survivors often need years to find the courage to speak their truth. Some never do. That's not weakness. That's the calculated psychological damage that predators inflict to protect themselves. In the gallery, Michael Edwards watched his daughter with immense pride. At 53, the former master sergeant had found new purpose in civilian life. His security consulting firm, Edwards Tactical Solutions, specialized in protecting families from domestic threats and corporate executives from kidnapping. But his proudest achievement sat at the prosecutor's table, transforming her trauma into justice for others. Hope's voice rose with controlled passion. Richard Gregg thought he could silence his victims through intimidation and fear. He thought wrong, because survivors like Sarah, like Jennifer, like Michelle, they refused to be silenced. They refused to let evil win. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. As court adjourned, Hope was surrounded by the 7 women whose cases she'd prosecuted. Their tears were different now. Tears of relief, of vindication, of knowing they'd been believed and their attacker would face consequences. Sarah Mitchell, the first victim to come forward, hugged Hope tightly. "You gave me my voice back," she whispered. "You always had your voice," Hope replied gently. "I just helped you find the courage to use it." Later that evening, 3 generations of the Edwards family gathered for their weekly dinner at Megan's house. The tradition had started 2 years ago when Hope married Leonard Lancaster Jr., the son of Mike's old Army buddy who'd helped with equipment during the Terrence operation. Leonard Jr. was a trauma surgeon at Portland General, and their shared commitment to helping people had drawn them together. "Any word on the appeal?" Megan asked as they settled around the dinner table. "Greg's attorney is going through the motions, but won't stick," Hope replied, cutting into her roast beef. "We documented everything perfectly. Dad taught me that." Mike smiled across the table at his daughter. Their relationship had deepened immeasurably since the Terrence incident. The shared trauma had forged an unbreakable bond. But more than that, Mike's actions had shown Hope that justice was possible even when systems failed. Speaking of documentation, Leonard Jr. said, "I heard from Abel today. Terrence was found dead in his cell." The table fell silent. Terrence McFarland Sullivan had served 3 years of his 25-year sentence before another inmate. A father whose own daughter had been assaulted delivered final justice with a sharpened toothbrush. "How do you feel about that?" Megan asked Hope carefully. Hope considered the question while she sipped her wine. "I feel complete," she said finally. "Not because he's dead, but because his story is finished. He can't hurt anyone else, and other predators saw that actions have consequences." "The ripple effect," Mike said quietly. Indeed, the Terrence case had created ripples far beyond Portland. Hope's victim impact statement, delivered when she was 18, had gone viral on social media. Her words, "Courage isn't not being afraid. It's doing what's right even when you are afraid," had been quoted in courtrooms across the country. More importantly, her story had inspired other victims to come forward. The Terrence investigation had exposed a network of predators operating throughout the Pacific Northwest. 17 additional arrests had followed, with convictions in 15 cases. "I got a call from Senator Thompson's office today," Mike said, changing the subject. "They want me to testify before the Armed Services Committee about veteran transition programs." Abel Thompson had left police work 5 years ago to run for state senate on a victims' rights platform. His friendship with Mike had proven invaluable in crafting legislation that closed loopholes predators had exploited for decades. "What's the focus?" Leonard Jr. asked. "Veterans who become vigilantes when legal systems fail their families," Mike replied. Apparently, there have been 17 similar cases nationwide since Terrence. Military fathers taking justice into their own hands. "That's concerning," Megan said. "It's predictable," Hope corrected. "When you train people to protect others, then watch systems fail to protect their children, of course they'll act. The solution isn't punishing the fathers, it's fixing the systems." Hope's insight reflected her evolution from victim to advocate to reformer. Her master's thesis at Lewis and Clark Law School had examined how military families navigated civilian justice systems, and her recommendations have been adopted by 3 states. "Actually," Hope continued, "I've been thinking about something. What would you say to writing a book together, Dad? About what happened, but more about what it taught us. Mike raised an eyebrow. What kind of book? A guide for parents dealing with predators. Not vigilante justice, but systematic approaches to protecting children when institutions fail. Your tactical knowledge, my legal experience, our shared understanding of how trauma affects families. The idea had merit. Mike's security consulting work had shown him that Terrence wasn't unique. Predators operated in every community, often protected by fear, money, or institutional indifference. A practical guide for parents could save other families from experiencing what they'd endured. Title suggestions? Mike asked. When justice fails, a father and daughter's guide to protecting families, Hope said immediately. Part memoir, part practical handbook. Their conversation was interrupted by Hope's phone. The caller ID showed Dr. Cecilia Finch, director of the Northwest Trauma Recovery Center, a facility Hope had helped establish using money from victim compensation funds. Hope, I'm sorry to call during family time, but we have a situation. A 15-year-old girl was brought in tonight. Sexual assault by her stepfather. The family is asking for you specifically. Hope was already reaching for her jacket. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I'll drive, Leonard Jr. offered, knowing his wife well enough to see her determination. As they prepared to leave, Mike caught Hope's arm gently. Remember what I taught you about sustainable operations. Take care of yourself so you can take care of others, Hope recited. I know, Dad, but this girl needs to know she's not alone. Mike nodded, understanding completely. 8 years ago, he'd moved heaven and earth to protect his daughter. Now she was using that protection to shield other children from the same darkness. 2 hours later, Hope sat beside a hospital bed where 15-year-old Christy Mays lay sleeping. The girl's mother, Janine Houston, held her daughter's hand while tears streamed down her face. She fought him, Janine whispered, just like you did. When I saw the news coverage of your case, I promised myself that if anything ever happened to Christy, I'd be brave enough to call police immediately. You did the right thing, Hope assured her. And Christy's going to recover. Not just physically, but emotionally too. I'll make sure of it. Through the hospital window, Hope could see Leonard Jr. talking with the trauma surgeon, probably arranging for specialized care Christy would need. In the hallway beyond, she spotted Detective Phil Davis taking a statement from Christy's stepfather's neighbor, who'd called 911 after hearing screams. This was how justice worked now. Not through vigilante operations like her father had executed, but through systems that actually functioned. Police who believed victims, prosecutors who fought for them, doctors who understood trauma, and advocates who ensured no one navigated the process alone. Hope's phone buzzed with a text from her father. How's she doing? Surviving, Hope typed back. Like we did. Proud of you, baby girl. Always. As dawn broke over Portland, Hope finally headed home. She drove past the warehouse district where her father had once hunted a monster, but now her thoughts were on the future. The book she and Mike would write. The legislation she was drafting with Senator Thompson. The trauma center that was expanding to serve 3 additional counties. Most importantly, she thought about Christy Mays, who would wake up in a world where survivors were believed, where predators faced consequences, and where a prosecutor who understood her pain would fight for justice. Hope Edwards Lancaster had survived her nightmare and transformed it into purpose. Her father had taught her that courage meant doing what was right even when afraid. Now she was teaching that lesson to others, one case at a time. The ripples continued spreading, and somewhere in the distance, other monsters were learning to be afraid of the light. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.